Welcome to everybody. We're going to talk in English because of our international panel. And the topic of this discussion is akin to the one which there was on the previous panel, but more specific. We're going to talk about the planned reform of the EU treaty, of the European Union treaties. So the title of our panel is An Empire of Europe or a Europe of Nations. In Polish, Imperium Europa czy Europa Narodów. So as most of you probably know, last year there was a French-German report of experts which was ordered by President Macron and Chancellor Scholz, which advocated for a federal European Union or maybe a more centralized European Union. And on the same year, the European Parliament prepared a resolution to formally start a reform, a very deep reform of the EU treaties. It's a topic which is discussed widely in Poland, but probably not so much in other countries. So this is why we also wanted to talk to people from other countries. So our guests here are from 4 different countries. First one on the left is MEP Hermann Tertsch from Spain. Hermann Tertsch is a MEP. He's been an MEP for Vox, the Vox party, since 2019. He's a journalist by profession, now a member of the editorial board of La Gaceta de la Iberosfera, which is a right-wing website centered on Spain and Latin America. In the past, Hermann Tertsch has been a correspondent in Central Europe for major Spanish media outlets. He's been deputy editor of El País. So he's not only worked for right-wing media, but also more center or left-wing media, although maybe El País was not so left-wing then. And he's worked for ABC, which is also a major center-right journal, daily newspaper in Spain. And in the European Parliament, he's vice chair of the ECR, European Conservative and Reformist Group, and vice chair of the delegation to the Euro-Latin American Parliamentary Assembly, and a member of the Committee on Foreign Affairs and of the delegation to the EU-Mexico Joint Parliamentary Committee. So Hermann Tertsch has much interest in Latin America as well, not only Central Europe, which he knows very well. So welcome, Hermann, and thank you for accepting our invitation. And then in the center, we have Lorenzo Bernasconi from Italy. Lorenzo Bernasconi is a research fellow at the Machiavelli Center think tank, which is probably the #1 conservative think tank in Italy. Currently is also advisor to the Minister for Economy and Finance in the Meloni government, and he's a former civil servant in the European Parliament, so he knows European affairs pretty well. And he's a former head of Secretariat in the office of Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini, and a former executive director at the Foundation for International Cooperation of the province of Milan, and the author of several articles and books on geopolitical and cultural issues. So thank you, Lorenzo, for accepting our invitation.
Dzień dobry. Good morning, everybody.
Dzień dobry. And from France, we have Jean Messiha. Jean Messiha is a former civil servant at the Ministry of Defense in France. Jean Messiha came to France with his family when he was age 8, and he didn't know a word of French. He's by origin an Egyptian Copt, and a very successful example of integration. A very well-known French patriot who well, very known in the media, as he's also a commentator and columnist. In his life, he's also been a top member of Marine Le Pen's national rally, which he joined in 2015. He was coordinator for presidential project in 2017 and a member of the party's political bureau. And then in 2022, in the presidential election, he became Eric Zemmour's spokesman. Eric Zemmour, as many of you may know, is the founder of a party which name is Reconquest, to the right of the National Rally. And Jean Messiha is now a candidate to the European Parliament on the list of Marion Maréchal. This is for Reconquest, for Eric Zemmour's Reconquest party. Thank you for joining us today.
Dzień dobry, thank you very much.
Dzień dobry. So first, to start our discussion, sorry. Physically here, we have also a representative of Poland, who is Jerzy Kwaśniewski, the president of the board of the Ordo Iuris for Legal Culture, legal think tank. It's a major, not only Polish, but European think tank on the right side. And Jerzy Kwaśniewski is also the editor and one of the authors of the Ordo Iuris report on the reform of the European Treaty. So first, I would like to ask you, Jerzy, why is this reform, which is planned by the European Parliament, which is the first reform which has been started under the Lisbon Treaty, why is it different from other previous treaty changes, and why do you think it's more radical or revolutionary, as we can read in this report of Ordo Iuris?
Thank you very much, Olivier. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us during this conference. It is something that we strongly believe that we should focus on, as all the nationalist, sovereign organizations, political organizations, think tanks, and NGOs across Europe. This process of transformation from a confederation of European Union into not only a federation, but rather a single centralized European empire that is being formed under the proposed amendments. And we have experienced two parallel events last year. In September 2023, the already mentioned report of experts, of Anglo-German, of Franco-German experts was published, and it of course proposed further integration as a remedy for broadening the scope of European Union and opening European Union for new members. As always, for 3 decades, inviting new members is then joined with a push for further integration. But even more important, what has happened last year was a report from the Constitutional Committee of the European Parliament, accepted by the committee in summer last year, and then accepted formally by the European Parliament in the voting of the resolution in November 2023, then accepted by the Council in December as well. And then what does it mean is that we are, for the first time since the Treaty of Lisbon, in the middle of a formal process of amending European treaties. It is not only a political proposal, it is already a legal act that is being pushed through the European institutions in order to amend European treaties, and it would be the last push for amendment, because according to the 267 amendments that have been already accepted by those bodies of the European Parliament and the Council, no further amendments will need a ratification process of member states. All further amendments, if those are accepted, will be proceeded only by EU bodies without asking for opinion the European members. And what is presented in 267 amendments is the farthest reaching goal of European unification, with, as we presented in our report, at least 10 spheres of sovereignty being transferred from member states to the newly formed European government and European undemocratically elected bodies. It starts with climate policy that is being transferred to European Union. Then we have cross-border infrastructure, border policy, all foreign policy that becomes a policy of the European Union, defense and military spending being centralized in Brussels, education, industry in its wholeness, of course, the single euro currency as the only currency of the European Union, and family affairs. So 10 different fields of sovereignty being transferred to Brussels with a single amendment of all the European treaties. And what is also characteristic of this push for change is that, according to the preamble of the document, it is openly inspired by Altiero Spinelli Manifesto Ventotene. So the authors of the document do not try to hide the ideological inspiration of the change. It is not the late Spinelli, Altiero Spinelli from 70s, Altiero Spinelli from the Single European Act of 80s. It is Altiero Spinelli from the 40s. It is this Altiero Spinelli, a Trotskyist, Marxist ideologue who authored the Manifesto of Ventotene. And as we put in short what is there in the Manifesto of Ventotene, it calls for the abolition of nations, removal of borders, abolition of property, abolition of democracy itself and replacement of democracy with the dictatorship of European Party, and the creation of a new European man free of any nationality. And that's what's happening now, and that's why we strongly believe it is the single most important political event that should be discussed during this political election.
I cannot but ask MEP Hermann Tertsch to react, because I know he's also a fierce anti-communist. And he's written about this treaty change, this attempted treaty change in the European Conservative of late, that how a group of federalists is carrying out a backdoor change of the treaties under the so-called Conference on the Future of Europe is outrageous. Why backdoor? We talk about it a lot here in Poland, not in Spain.
Well, we speak less because there's the less countries that the danger is there. I mean, you were lucky enough to have a government which was very active in opposing it. And that's why Germany and the European Commission became the greatest enemy of the Polish government, and succeeded finally in putting someone else. But in our country, we have only one force, and that's Vox, who is fighting against this perversion of the backdoor change of the treaty, and the imposing of really a competence shift, which leaves the nations almost powerless and without any veto as well, and going into a path where we will be almost puppets of a bureaucratic monster without any accountability, and really going, as you said, as you wisely said, going the path of socialism, of directly going to without borders, without nations, going into a socialist system where all our cultural goods and certainties and really what makes our European life and our Western world and culture will be eroded. That's let's say the plan on long term, but the plan on short term is here, is immediate. We're in a hurry, in an enormous hurry, because they know times are changing and moods are changing, and it's very difficult to betray everybody and to cheat as they are doing in this commission. This 5 years, Ursula von der Leyen, socialist and really tremendously damaging commission. So the people are reacting. We are seeing the figures for the election, and they are very nervous because the great pact between the People's Party and the Socialists and Renew and the Greens, there's four, let's say the apocalypse for they don't need even the communists. The Greens and the Socialists in Europe are by now absolutely communist, and the People's Party of Mr. Tusk and of Mr. Feijóo is only following the same path with different words. They are legitimizing everything what the socialist path is imposing. So we are in danger, but they feel in danger as well, because they see their plan, which they thought was very safe till some years ago, their plan is cracking, and people are reacting against it. And that's what makes us so optimistic, let's say, or hopeful, maybe better said, hopeful that we can really prevent them of going through with this criminal plans.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I would like to know if it's the same in Italy. Is it talked about in the Lorenzo? Do the media talk about it? Is it a topic in the campaign for the European election?
Well, actually, there is practically no debate on Italian media over this specific issue. But of course, there is a lot of interest on the European elections, especially because Italian citizens are pretty disappointed at the moment by several main policies of the current European Commission. Especially the whole Green Deal is an issue because it imposes to renovate our real estate heritage, and you know, Italy is an old country. A lot of our towns and cities date back to the Middle Age. So the requirements imposed by the European Commission are not realistic in this kind of environment. Another issue is the stop that the Commission wants to put to gas, to vehicles that use gas or oil, that use traditional sources of energy, and the push towards a total electrification of the vehicles in all the European Union. Well, it will create serious troubles to our to our automotive industry, that is one of the largest in Europe, but also it will create a serious issue about how could you provide electricity enough for such a large number of vehicles. It is practically impossible in our country, but also in most European countries. Another issue is agriculture. The European policy on agriculture are damaging our producers and are too favorable to third countries like northern African countries that, of course, have a cost of labor that is extremely cheap compared to European standards. So our farmers really struggle to stay on the market because the unfair competition of third countries' competitors. But the European Union keeps going this path of free trade in exchange of reform. It's like we are opening our market to other countries in exchange of internal reforms that theoretically should benefit the local citizens. I say theoretically because often these reforms just stay on paper and doesn't affect the local reality. So, of course, there is a lot of disappointment towards this European Commission and a lot of hope that the new elections will change as much as possible the path the European Union is going.
This is happening under the current treaties, and as far as I know, Giorgia Meloni's government didn't block the decision on the ban of traditional cars, of non-electric cars, and it didn't block the migration pact. Can we count on the Meloni government to block this planned reform of the EU treaty? What do you think?
Well, of course, it's a question you should address to our Prime Minister. I cannot give a sure answer to this question.
But what's your take on it? Do you think she will block it?
Well, I think if other countries, if Meloni will see that it's possible to create a bloc, even if it's a minority bloc with other 3 or 4 countries, I think she could decide to take a step and try to block it. If it will be Italy alone, I don't think she could do that, because of course you need to live with Brussels, to find a way to live with the European Commission. And we have seen what happened to Orban when he tried to pose some decision at the European level. The level of pressure imposed to the Hungarian government on the long term was unbearable. So, of course, if many other countries will try to block this reform, I think Meloni will think about it quite seriously. But so, of course, not alone.
Okay. Jean Messiha, I heard you on the radio, I think a week ago, on Radio Courtoisie, say that France should disobey EU rules on immigration to stop immigration, and that when you were asked, can we? I mean, the EU won't let us do that. You said, but France is France. I mean, nobody will stop us from doing that. You're a former civil servant at the Ministry of Defense. One of the points of this planned reform is to allow Brussels to decide where to send troops, including French troops on foreign missions, and to decide on common EU arm purchase. So Paris would not decide, but Brussels would decide. What's your take? Do you think it's possible that France will abandon its sovereignty on such sensible subjects like defense and foreign policy?
Of course, I am totally against, and my party, as I represent here, are totally against this evolution. I would like to point out that what is happening today is no surprise for the evolution of the European Union since the beginning. It is in the DNA of the European Union to try to erase the nations. This is the first philosophy on which the European Union was built. And as you know, this erosion of the nations is being made step by step with a lock effect in order for people not to be able to come back again to the previous step. For example, the abandoning of our sovereign money, the abandoning of the currencies, national currencies, and the melting in the euro. Nobody can now, no people can now decide to come back again to the national currency. So there is a lock effect in which, in every step, the European Union is following since 1951. So what is happening now is the last step aiming at building a super federal state, and as I heard it very correctly, emerging a new citizen which has no roots, European citizen. So I want to ask a question. When I arrived in France back in 1978, imagine that the project of a federal state was at that time effective. To what would I integrate? Now I integrate to France. I was not French, and I integrate to the French nation, to the French civilization. If we are talking about a federal European Union, what would have been my way to the assimilation and integration? To what culture I will be assimilated now? And that's precisely why the European Union is in favor of an immigration that looks like an invasion, because the more millions of migrants you make in the European Union, the more you accelerate the process of erosion of the nations, the more you create an identity malaise. People do not know anymore who they are. In France, we are facing this. We have millions of migrants who are not integrated to our society, and even the historical French are now doubting of who they are. So the step we arrived today is very critical, and this is the fault of the European Union. Now, to answer more directly your question, of course, the European Union and all these reforms of the treaty that are discussed now are the baby of Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz, because as you know, the two main engines of the European Union are Germany and France. Both countries are led by leftist and progressist people. So they are looking to transform and to accelerate the European Union regarding to their own ideology. But in an ideal world where we have, for example, tomorrow, a nationalist government in France, if France do not want to apply the pact of migration, of course, in the beginning, there will be a step of discussion in order to retire this pact from effectiveness. But say Germany will not accept and other countries do not accept, we consider that there is no thing superior to democracy, meaning that if the people elect a power which is against all what is applied in a political level in European Union, nobody can tell the people you are wrong. No commission, no parliament, European institution can order a democratic elected power to resign or to abandon the program on which he was elected. So if the European Union in that case do not want to apply the willing of the democratically elected power, the democratically elected power is in right to say, okay, we will not apply the treaties on all what is in contradiction with our program. What will the European Union say? She will say, you do not have the right to do that. We will say, yes, we will take it. What will happen? I mean, the European Union, how many divisions? What will happen? If the European Union say we are going to apply fines, you will pay fines because you do not obey the European Union. If the national government say we will not pay, what will happen? Nothing. So we must go out from this project fear. The European Union is not superior to millenary nations. The European Union is not superior to people who are here for more than 2,000 years, you know. The European Union has only 70 or 80 years of existence, and it is here because of the willing of the nation and of the people. It is an extraction of the nation of the people. The European Union does not lead. The European Union is an executor of the willing of the nations. And we do not want for the European Union to be an independent power, because the European Union, it's coming out of the stomach of the nations. So how come a creation of the nation could now order us instead of executing our willing?
But then France is in a better situation than Poland, Italy, and Spain, because it's a net contributor to the budget.
Exactly.
So France could say, okay, you can withhold the funds. We're very happy about it because we won't pay to the budget and we'll earn money on this. It's more difficult. I think Italy has been in particular under pressure because of its financial situation. I mean, France's financial situation is not much better, but in its relation to the EU is better. Jerzy, could you tell us, I mean, I think most people, especially in Western Europe, feel that there's no danger because it's very hard to have a new treaty adopted, and this one has absolutely no chance. Unless France or Germany, as net contributors, decide to block it, don't you think other countries like Spain, Italy, Poland, Hungary, who may be skeptical about it, will be forced, blackmailed into accepting this treaty?
Let me start with saying that I share all the opinions of Jean that I have just heard about the role of the European Union as a subsidiary apparatus to the nation states. The idea that has been lost decades ago in the development of the European Union bodies. And yes, it is also very disturbing that in many countries of European Union, this unprecedented process of amending European treaties and transforming European Union into a single state with a single citizenship, with a single border system, without nation borders, even external nation borders, without external foreign policy of our nation states, and with a centralized military spending, education, culture, everything, just everything, is not being debated in many of the European countries. And without this topic being part of the European Parliament elections debate, and without this topic being brought to the light of the public opinion, we may not succeed in stopping this process. Because for the first time, the Treaty of Lisbon procedures has been started, and if we do not stop this process with a refusal to ratify the amendments in at least one of the larger countries of European Union, the whole system of the amendments will be accepted and the European Union will change forever. And it is, of course, it is needed only to have at least one large country like Poland, Italy, Spain, Germany, France, to say no, to refuse to ratify the amendments. Of course, theoretically, it would be as well enough for one of the smaller countries to refuse. But we know from the history that it is a tradition of the European democracy that when a smaller country does not recognize the historical momentum and does not vote in favor of European Union ideas, it is pushed for a second referendum and third referendum as long as it makes the proper decision. So it is up to us, representatives of larger European nations, to mobilize our public opinions, to show them that we are on a brink of a long-lasting change without any further control over the process if we let it go now.
But then, Hermann, I'm turning to you now because you're a member of the European Parliament, so you were part of those discussions. There was a debate. You were an elected representative, as all MEPs are. There was this conference on the future of Europe, which was open to all citizens. So there is a democratic process.
I would say it wasn't open. I mean, they selected some people to bring them there. It was a pure fiction. I wanted to stress the point that we need this critical mass for this resistance. Of course, it would be decisive. France would be decisive, and to join 2 or 3 members, founding members, would be decisive to take this step. We don't have them yet, but I want to stress the point that yesterday we had a big event in Madrid, where we had very special guests. Abascal invited from Milei to Le Pen. Orban sent his message, Giorgia Meloni, hers, and we were all in great synchrony in this meeting yesterday. It was a huge success, as I say. There were 13,000 people inside an old bullfight arena, which was packed with enthusiastic followers. And hearing all these defenders of the nation and of freedom there, and this is the step forward over as well over the groups itself inside the European Parliament, to unite to take this fight up to our victory, because I think we are now in this last phase, as you say, in this last moment. They want to create irreversible situations, facts, so that the possibilities of turning to a reasonable way of living of the nations should be almost impossible, if not impossible, enormously costly and difficult to explain. I think the education and so on is doing their role for them. Their absolute hegemony in questions of communication is also continuously bombarding with their ideology systematically, with huge amounts of money flowing only for conversion of the people and of imposing some narratives, and so on. And besides the narratives, as you very well said, there is the blackmail, the permanent blackmail. No nation is now able to do by itself, not even the big ones, as a big one like Italy, a founding nation like Italy, is able to do what they want, because they have a coercion, an enormous coercion, because of their financial situation, and we as well. And the country with a socialist government, which is violating systematically the law, which is really a government of outlaws, what we have in Spain now. They are pacting with criminals, the majority in the parliament. I mean, it's outrageous what happens in Spain, and nobody cares in Brussels. We have seen in these 5 years, we have seen in every plenary we had something against Hungary. In every plenary there was something to look against Poland till the elections, of course. After the elections, nothing has moved. But suddenly, the rules in Poland are, when it's Tusk and the socialists and the communists and Germany, the rules in Poland are perfect. And the same rules were absolutely obnoxious before the elections. I mean, if you see with hypocrisy that we have there, we have to unite and create this critical mass for imposing the will of the nations to this bureaucratic monster that has the globalist interest behind it.
But then from what you're saying, it's not enough to change these changes, because the current treaty is not working well, since we have all this abuse by the European Commission, by the European institutions, all this creative case law which is being made by the European Court of Justice. Lorenzo, you're a member of a think tank. Don't you think, of a right-wing conservative think tank, don't you think the right should make its own proposals to propose a treaty change, but a treaty change which will go in the direction of more democracy, more sovereignty, more subsidiarity?
Absolutely, yes. And well, let me just say that for the sake of truth, that Italy too is a net contributor to the European budget. It's the first net contributor just after Germany, France, and the Netherlands. And well, so I think my country should have a say in how the European money is spent. Anyway, yes, in Italy, 2 out of 3 parties in the government coalition are right-wing parties, are conservative parties. So for sure, I think they should move with the proposal. And I was in Madrid too yesterday at Palacio Vista Alegre, and I would like to mention what Marine Le Pen said there, that European states has made Europe, has made the European Union. It was not the European Union to make the states, and that's central, that's extremely important, because the states came before, and the source of legitimacy and of power of the Union stays in the state. And this centralist idea that the Union, in Brussels, they have the idea that they always know better. They always know what's better for European countries, exactly like in Moscow at the time of the Soviet Union. The government thought that they knew better. They knew what was good for the republics. Well, and we all have seen how it ended. So for sure, that's maybe something the European center-right should work a little bit more, not just opposing what Brussels is doing, but coming up with a different proposal, with a different and ambitious view of Europe. The leftist, centralist elite in Brussels has ambition but lacks pragmatism. They are not able to actually understand the identities, the reality, the real situations of our country. We should counteract with a proposal reform that is both visionary and pragmatic, both ambitious and rooted in the reality, because at the end of the day, like we have seen in the Soviet Union that finally collapsed, facts, reality is stronger than ideology. And I think even if it will take time, the current ideology of a European super state will collapse because its own internal unsustainability.
Yeah, and Jean, you are from a party or a candidate for a party which is a very strong advocate of a union of the rights in France. And do you think at the European level such a union is possible so that we can work on an alternative proposal for a treaty reform which will be more conservative and more respectful of nation states?
It is not only a possibility, it's a necessity. Because as I told you previously, of course, the better way to change Europe upside down is to have nationalist government in the main nation state of Europe. And this, of course, will enhance the changement of the European Union itself. But we have a second possibility. I call it a second chance to escape from this morbid project that is sustained by the European Union. It is the European Parliament, because as you know, the Treaty of Lisbon gave the European Parliament more power and more weight in the European institutions. So if we succeeded on June the 9th to have a majority of conservative MPs and right-wing MPs, we will have the opportunity to circumvent the national government, which are now leftist and progressist in the main states like France and Germany, and we will have the opportunity to block at the level of the European Parliament all these anti-national projects, all these anti-national issues that those leftist and progressist governments are trying to work out in Europe. So that's why these elections are fundamental, because as all our friends said it from the beginning, we are now facing the final steps of abandoning the nation states as levels of main decisions. So if we will not react rapidly and block rapidly all this anti-national dynamic which are fueled by a French government and German government, I'm afraid that this will be more and more difficult to counteract in the future. So we need to have a great mobilization for this European election of June, because we have a very, very good chance to block all these projects, all these anti-national projects, if the people awake. And final remark, and I agree with what have said our Italian representative, of course, the European Union is functioning exactly like the USSR. Two things. Remember when all the plan...
very shortly now, because we're running out of time.
Okay. All the ideology cannot be superior to facts. I agree with this. And second thing, all the monetary unions in the past never succeeded when it is made without a political union. So I think that the Eurozone will collapse shortly or lastly because there is no European Union, and the nation do not want a political union.
Okay, thank you. So we're running out of time, so maybe just one sentence of conclusion for each of our guests, and then we'll have to stop and bring this discussion maybe off camera to keep working together.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for all the remarks and this full of hope finishing remarks that it is possible to have not only a political victory on the European level for conservatives sooner or later, but also that it is possible to propose an alternative changes, alternative amendments to the European treaties that will go back to the true roots of European Christian nations based in the national identities.
Hermann, one sentence of conclusion.
Yes, I hope we have the best chance to get out of this project, which is essentially a failure. It is a failure, and we have to correct it, amend it, and get out of it.
Lorenzo?
Well, I think the right wing, the conservative parties, still are not ready to present an alternative, but they are working on it. They are working on it at an amazing pace, and all these events, like the one in Madrid yesterday, but also this panel discussion, is a step in the right way. This is a step in the right direction of building a right-wing, solid and credible alternative.
Jean, one last sentence of conclusion.
Yeah, we believe with Reconquest and Éric Zemmour and Marion Maréchal that France is not only a country we are living in. France is a country that lives in us. So I think all our fellow friends here can say the same thing. The nation states are not only countries we are living in. They are countries, those are countries who are living inside us. So we will struggle to the last effort in order to preserve and restore our national identity and our national sovereignty. And this is our superiority against the leftists and the progressists.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of us for this very interesting discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo. Do widzenia.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękujemy.